Welcome to the channel where money, history, and power collide. This is where we reveal how fortunes were built and how they were lost. Here, you'll uncover the hidden stories of business empires that shaped the world and the lessons they leave behind for your future. And today, we dive into one of the strangest financial stories in history, when frozen water was worth more than gold. This is the rise and the fall of the Ice King. Part 1. Setting the stage before the Ice Empire. To understand why ice became a business, we need to rewind to the late 18th century. Imagine a world before refrigerators, before air conditioning, before mechanical freezers. In Europe and America, wealthy families sometimes built ice houses, stone cellars, where winter snow was packed away for summer use. But for most people, cold drinks were a fantasy. In the tropics, from the Caribbean to India, ice was unheard of. Fruit rotted in hours, meat spoiled in days, and the very idea of an icy beverage was almost magical. At the same time, the Industrial Revolution was transforming everything. Trade networks expanded, colonies demanded luxuries from Europe, and a new middle class in America began craving status symbols once reserved for aristocrats. This is where Frederic Tudor enters the picture. Born in Boston in 1783, Tudor was the son of a wealthy family. But instead of following a traditional career in law or politics, he became obsessed with a strange idea. Why not cut ice from New England's frozen ponds and sell it to the sweltering Caribbean? At the time, people laughed. Ice melted, who would buy frozen water? The newspapers even ridiculed him with headlines like, "No joke, a vessel with a cargo of 80 tons of ice has cleared out from this port for Martinique. We hope this will not prove a slippery speculation." But Tudor wasn't joking. He was building the foundations of a global industry. Part 2 Origins. The birth of the ice trade. The first shipment sailed in 1806. Tudor loaded a brig with about 80 tons of ice from a Massachusetts pond, insulated the blocks with sawdust, and sent it to Martinique in the Caribbean. The cargo arrived mostly intact, but Tudor had no buyers. Locals didn't know what to do with ice. He gave away samples just to spark curiosity. Slowly, wealthy colonists started paying for it, serving chilled drinks at their parties. Word spread. Still, Tudor faced massive challenges. Insulation was primitive. Nearly half the ice melted on long voyages. Storage facilities didn't exist. He had to build ice houses in Havana, Charleston, and eventually Calcutta. Capital was scarce. He borrowed heavily, was arrested multiple times for debt, and once spent months in jail. But he kept going. By the 1,820 seconds, Tudor had perfected a system. Sawdust insulation, double-hulled ships, and massive warehouses that kept ice for months. He partnered with ship captains, brokers, and even colonial governments. And suddenly, ice wasn't just a novelty, it was a business. Part 3. The rise. Ice becomes luxury gold. From the 1,820 seconds to the 1,850 seconds, the ice trade exploded. The Caribbean and the American South. In Havana, ice became a status symbol. Rich families hosted elaborate banquets where chilled champagne and ice cream dazzled guests. In New Orleans, doctors prescribed ice for fevers and cholera, making it both a luxury and a medical necessity. India. Perhaps the most astonishing market was British India. In 1833, the first ice shipment arrived in Calcutta after a 4-month voyage around Africa. To the British colonists, it was a miracle. Ice transformed tropical life, from cocktails at officers' clubs to ice-cold lemonade for colonial administrators. By the 1,840 seconds, Tudor was shipping thousands of tons annually to India, Brazil, and beyond. In Rio de Janeiro, ice was so rare that it sold for more than gold by weight. A single drink with ice cubes was a luxury only the elite could afford. Profits and scale. At its peak, the New England ice trade exported over 150,000 tons of ice a year to more than 50 cities worldwide. It employed thousands of workers each winter to cut lakes, load wagons, and stack warehouses. Frederic Tudor became fabulously wealthy. From being called crazy, He was now the Ice King. But the empire had cracks. Part 4. The breaking point. The problem with Tudor's empire was simple. It relied on one thing. He couldn't control nature. Ice harvesting depended on cold New England winters. Warm years meant poor harvests. Transportation was risky. Ships sank. Cargo melted. Profit margins shrank. Competitors emerged. By the mid-1800s, dozens of companies were cutting ice in Boston, Maine, and New York. Prices dropped. Then came the killer blow: technology. In the 1,850 seconds, inventors in the American South and Europe developed mechanical ice-making machines. By compressing ammonia or ether, they could freeze water artificially. At first, these machines were expensive and unreliable. But by the 1,870 seconds, they were cheaper than shipping ice from Boston. In India, local entrepreneurs built artificial ice factories that undercut Tudor's imports. By 1880, Calcutta's ice houses no longer stored New England ice, they produced their own. The empire of natural ice began to collapse. Part 5. Fallout and failed fixes. Frederic Tudor died in 1864, still wealthy but aware that his industry was under threat. After his death, the decline accelerated. In the Caribbean, artificial ice replaced imports. In the American South, railroads brought ice from closer sources, undercutting New England's monopoly. By the early 1900s, household refrigerators and ice machines rendered the natural ice trade obsolete. Towns in New England that once lived off winter ice cutting fell silent. Warehouses rotted. An industry that had once been compared to gold had melted away, literally and figuratively. But perhaps the most ironic twist? While ice became cheap and abundant in the 20th century, millions of people around the world still lived without refrigeration. Even today, the World Health Organization estimates that billions lack reliable cold storage, making vaccines and food preservation difficult. The dream that Tudor sold ice for everyone remains unevenly distributed. Part 6. Modern parallels, shocking data and patterns. So what does this forgotten story of frozen water tell us today? More than you think. 1. Tech disruption. The ice trade was destroyed by refrigeration technology, just as Kodak was destroyed by digital cameras. Blockbuster was destroyed by Netflix. Taxi monopolies were disrupted by Uber. The pattern is the same. A natural monopoly built on logistics collapses when a cheaper technology arrives. 2. Climate and fragility. The ice trade relied on cold winters. A few warm years could ruin harvests. Today, industries from agriculture to energy face the same vulnerability to climate shocks. Consider the Texas power grid collapse of 2021. Global coffee prices swinging with droughts in Brazil. Dependence on nature is still a hidden risk. 3. Luxury to necessity. In Tudor's time, ice was a luxury for elites. Today, refrigeration is a necessity for medicine, food, and vaccines. But access remains unequal. According to the UN, over 1 billion people still lack access to refrigeration. In sub-Saharan Africa, up to 60% of vaccines spoil before use due to lack of cold storage. The global ice problem didn't disappear, it just changed shape. Part 7. Conclusion. Lessons and takeaways. So what can we learn from the rise and fall of the ice trade? Takeaway 1. Innovation always disrupts tradition. Frederic Tudor built an empire on frozen ponds. But no empire, no matter how profitable, can withstand a disruptive technology. If you're in business today, assume that the next invention could melt your profits overnight. Takeaway 2. Logistics is often more valuable than the product. Tudor wasn't selling water, he was selling the system that made frozen water available in the tropics. Even today, Amazon, FedEx, and global shipping companies thrive not because of what they sell, but because of how they deliver. Takeaway 3. What begins as a luxury can become a necessity. Ice started as a party trick for the rich. Today, cold storage underpins global food supply chains and modern medicine. What luxuries today, electric cars, private space travel, AI tools might become necessities tomorrow. Final warning and open end. The story of the ice trade reminds us, the things we think are permanent rarely are. Whole industries can vanish in a single generation. What looks like gold today can melt into water tomorrow. So here's the question. What's the ice of our time? Is it oil? Is it cryptocurrency? Is it data itself? History tells us only one thing for certain. Empires melt. The real challenge is spotting the thaw before it's too late. Call to action. If you found this story fascinating, hit the like button. It helps the algorithm know this kind of deep dive history matters. Subscribe for more forgotten stories of business empires, manias, and collapses. And in the comments, tell me, what modern industry do you think is at risk of melting away next? Because the Ice King thought he had a monopoly forever, he didn't. And maybe neither do the giants of today.